face it, not everything you make in art is great. Sometimes you have good days, and sometimes you have bad days. Sometimes your art is excellent, and other times your art sucks.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to this new video. In this video, we're going to take a close look at one of my earlier drawings. In this case, I'm talking about this piece of artwork here. I did this, as you can see, in 2019. 26th of April in 2019. Here in Peru, we put the day first, then the month, and then the year. And then, anyways, that's my name. So yeah. So this is a piece that I did way back. What's that? 4 years ago. And this is a piece that I did of Ant-Man. And yeah. So today in this episode of Your Art Sucks, we're going to take a look at what are some of the flaws of this particular piece and yeah, just break it down, what I can show you, and how you can hopefully improve this for your next piece of art. So yeah, so I'm taking a look at this, and I took a look at it earlier before recording it, and there's a lot of things that's wrong with this. The number one thing that pops off in my head is proportions. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I got that written here. Proportions. The proportions are completely wrong in this, and I've mentioned this before in other videos. But when you're drawing superheroes, there's normally this rule of 8 heads. There's normally this 8 heads rule. It can vary. You know, you can have 7 heads. You can have 6. You can have 9. No, 10. But the mid range is 7. 7 and 8. And so what that means is that if you're drawing and then you draw your head, and then your head is this size, then that means that from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet, you should have you should be able to fit in that length 8 heads. So you should have this, for example, is 1 unit, so we can consider that 1 head, and you should be able to have all the way down to 8 heads. So that's it's like a rule to help make sure that your characters are all in proportion, so that they all look like they make sense. They can all look somewhat realistic. If you don't do that, then this is what you come out with. When I drew this, I didn't know anything about this proportions thing, so I just drew innately. I just drew what I thought is where things needed to go. No, so I didn't plan this out much more than that. No, and yes, so yeah, you can see that there's a lot of flaws there. Because for example, when you have your 8 heads, you have your head, your neck, you have your shoulder space, your shoulders. This represents the collarbone a little bit. Then you have the upper torso, the lower torso. You have the shoulder, the where the bicep is, and then you have the forearm, and then you have your legs. I do this circle here for the knee. Then you have your shins, and then you have your feet. So this would be the size of it. So there's things that have to always be in relation to each other. And in this case, for example, you can see that like if I can just imagine, like I'm taking his head and just taking it out, like because it looks like this is too sunk in there. Like there's a head, there's a chest, but where's the neck area? Where's the collarbone? Where's all of this at? It looks like it's missing. So one recommendation is to always do this kind of drawing beforehand, so you know exactly how the figure is going to look. If I had done that with this, then I know that I would need to either pull this head further up in that direction, further in that direction, or draw the head up around. I'm assuming, without drawing on this piece, but I'm assuming like around here would be the head. Your head, and then your neck, and then the the upper part of this chest. So I'm assuming around here is where the head should go. So and then this area here, this connection with the shoulder, and then this part of the collar, this is also incorrect, because what it looks like I'm doing here in this drawing, it looks like I'm disconnecting the shoulder. The shoulder, instead of being where it needs to be, hold on. Instead of being where it needs to be here, it looks like I drew it here. So like there's no connection here, and it should be here at this level with the collarbone. Now it moves up a little bit, but it doesn't go that far up like I have it here. So yeah, so either I can, I don't know, I have to find some, I can either pull the arm down. Let me zoom back out. I can pull the arm down, or something, but there needs to be a lot of work done again in this area here, this whole top area here. And again, all of that could be avoided if you had taken the time to draw proportions, right? So if I had done something like that, let me see if I can correct that. Let me try this. Because if I had done something along the lines of what I should have done, I should have had like the head. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. I should have the head. Here's the neck. Now the collarbone like this. The shoulder around here, the torso, the upper torso here, the bottom torso here, probably a little bit longer than that, and then the leg pops up from here, and then the other leg comes down here. So yeah, I'd have something a little bit different than what I have here. So this thing is something like that is what it should look like. But again, this is just a preliminary sketch. You can always go back and erase this and then tighten it up a lot more. But I think you get the idea. You have to do this kind of figure work before you start working with before you start drawing like I did. Now when I approach a piece, I always do this kind of figure work first. And then on top of this figure work is when I start doing like the costume designs and stuff. So after I finish doing this, that's when I start doing in the helmet. That's when I start. First you got to do the figure work, and then you got to do the rest of this stuff here. So the figure work comes first, and then you jump into the the cool stuff with the costume. So so this is something that you have to do first. This is get the figure work done first, and then work on the costume. And actually when I approach a drawing, this figure work, before I do the costume, the figure work is where I spend the most time on, because I want to make sure you get that right. And so if you don't, then you have something like this, and it looks horrible. So proportions, check your proportions always. Always check your proportions. Make sure you have this 8. You can use the 8 heads rule. It could be 7 heads. They're not for all characters. Like Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, 8 heads. Wolverine, Spider-Man, a little bit shorter. 6-7 heads. Colossus, Juggernaut. They're bigger. They might be 10 heads. So it just depends. But this is the average right there, 8 heads. And so so that's one thing that I noticed with this is the proportions are all wrong. And so the second thing that I noticed with this is rendering. And by rendering, I'm referring to these lines here, these lines here, these lines here. These are lines that in this case help to identify the shadows, like these lines here, these lines all over. Rendering helps with shadows. It helps with textures. It helps with also identifying the curve of a shape, with helping to establish the shape also. So all of these lines here, they need to be redone, because if you take a look at it, everything here is just parallel lines. Everything is parallel lines. There's absolutely no cross hatching in this. So everything is parallel lines, parallel lines, parallel lines. No cross hatching in this. So, And I would mean, whether it's parallel lines, whether it's cross hatching, there's really no correct way to render. I mean, because I've seen people that do this kind of thing and then make it completely successful. I see people that don't do this and use the cross hatching. So I guess that can be up to personal preference. No, up for personal preference depending on what you think looks best according to you, and then also if you can pull it off. So if you can pull it off, and then yeah, it will be great. Um, but one thing that I would critique on this is that the use of parallel lines doesn't help too much with identifying the shape. Because, for example, when you're drawing, when you're rendering, and when you do your rendering lines, having the same length all the way throughout the line, like having the same length here as you do here as you do here, it looks kind of flat. And we don't. I would recommend not doing that. One thing that you can do to solve that problem is working always, playing always actually with thickness and thinness. Thinness, is that a word? I think it is. I don't know. So if you have a line, there should be one side of it that should be thick, and then the other side of it that should be thin, always in reference to the light source. So for example, if my light source, I'm gonna put LS for light source. If my light source is here, so I know that this area has to be thin, and then this area down here has to be thick, right? This has to be thick. So to show that, I would have to draw like a much thicker line here, and then this is all probably not the best, but I think you get an idea here. Now you can draw a thick to thin line, yeah. And then if you do a bunch of these, then you're able to give that effect that there's a shadow being cast. I'm gonna try to show you here with this one because this isn't the best. This isn't the best pen to show this with. Like if you do something like that, for example, you can see that there's this rendering area here, and then there's like a second rendering set here. So here you have it's lighter, and then here it's darker. So that can always help you to identify the shape. I don't know if you guys saw, yeah, okay. So that can always help you to identify the shape and to see the curvature and things like that. So if you have something like that, it would be always good to like, get darker in some areas. And then you can play with it, like, because not all shapes are just, I mean, there can be curves on top of curves. And then, for example, you can do things like this. And then if you look at it, if you zoom out, if you look at it from further back, then it'll give you another illusion. So in that case, that's something that I would recommend. So I mean, it can be parallel lines. You can have a lot of parallel lines like this, but then it's always good to show. I recommend it's always good to show some kind of thickness and variety in the line in the thickness of the line when you're rendering. I think it would always be good to have that variety. For specifically here in this drawing, like I'm using the lines here to indicate a shadow along this bottom part of the leg, but then I have this line that's cutting right through the shadow. See if you can see this. I have this line that's cutting right through the shadow, and then right above that, like right in this area here, I could benefit a lot from a thicker line, and then this bottom part here can also be benefited with a thicker line, and just help with the shadows a lot better. And that's a problem that I have all over the drawing, because I do it here, I do it here, I do it here, and all over. And if you ask yourself, then why did you make this mistake? Well, this is me drawing in 2019. In 2019, when I drew this, I thought this was the best drawing I had ever done. I was like, Marvel, sign me now, that kind of mentality, which is great. I mean, that's why I keep this. That's why I don't change it. That's why I always look back at this and on my other drawings so I can see the progress that has been made in that time. so I can look at the mistakes that I've made and then try not to make them again. Um, so yeah, so that's what I thought was the best way of approaching a rendering in that case. And so yeah, that's one of the problems that I have in this drawing. No, so I have proportions, I have drawing, I'm sorry, rendering, and then I also have a problem here with rendering in black. Rendering in black. I didn't know about this at the time when I was drawing this, but when you're doing characters with black and you have a lot of these black lines like this, it's also possible to render. And it's also possible to render. Just because it's in black doesn't mean you can't render. No, you can also render characters that are in all black. And I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that I have, let's see, I don't know, this piece of fabric, and let's imagine that the color of this is white, and then I have this piece of fabric, and then the color of this is black, and I want to have my light source up here, and then I have the shadow, the shade, the darkness shadow here at the bottom. One thing that I normally do now, for example, is as you saw in my previous video with Deathmonger, I shade in, I spot the blacks, so I identify the black areas, I spot the blacks, and then from the blacks, I render outwards towards that light source. So I'll do something like this. Let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can see this better. Yeah. Let's see, is that okay? Yeah. So that's the light source. This is the shadow, and so I'm rendering out like this. Yeah, I could even, well, if you look at it like right there, and you can see that it's like a certain gradient from here to downwards. Like this, like the light source is stronger there, and then it gets dimmer, and then it blacks out. Now I can take it a step further, and I can cross hatch, and I normally like to cross hatch like this. I first came across this from Rob Willis. Shout out to Rob Willis. And also Platt and David Finch. They're really good guys with cross hatching like this. So so that's how I would normally render. Like if this is like a piece of white cloth or I don't know, whatever. If this were and if this other piece is black, then I would do the same thing. But obviously because it's black, I would have to color a larger area in black. So then I don't know if you can see this or not. Sorry. So I would color it like this. Black. Let's just imagine that this is an all black. And so I would color this. Yeah, also excuse me for the background noise in case you hear any background noise. So yeah, so I would color it all black, take up much more space, but even still from this black area I can still render out. I can still do this number here. Now and depending on how much black I use to cover the shape, I mean, I can do this, or I can do something very similar, very small, like I do in other drawings, like just this, just these small lines here. I could do that also. No, it just depends on what kind of effect I want to give on that texture or whatever. But here, for example, let me zoom back out. Here in this piece, I didn't do any of that. Like for example here, this would be a prime place to render. Here would be a prime place to render. I could do some rendering here. In this case, for example, on the outside of the leg, to help show like a second light source, I can use a rendering like this. Just 1 second. I could use rendering like this, just these small little lines all along the thing, all along his leg. Right here, this whole little, I can do that, and it'll help out. I could also render here, all along the arm here. I could render. No, so rendering in black. There's no rendering in black here. It's just, just spotting in blacks. So there's no rendering in black. So that would be the third thing that I would that I can spot with this. Yeah, I think that would be about it. Yeah, so and then here, for example, in the metallic areas of his suit, I used something different to render. Like for example, in the helmet here, one second. Here in the helmet, I used what was I used the Faber Castell brush pen. I don't think I have any on me right now. I don't have any on me right now, but it's a brush pen, and then it gives off this effect. And back in that day, back in 2019, I mixed inks with brush pens, and I used the brush pen to give certain shadows and stuff that I at the time couldn't pull off with the ink pen. So now, for example, nowadays I would render that differently, and I would probably make it metallic, and there's different ways to render that so make it look metallic. But in this case, no, I used the brush pen to try to render that. And I mean, it's not a critique because again, you can pull that off. I've seen other artists pull off, and especially when you're working with Copics and you're using colors. Yeah, you can mix it very well, and it looks like a finished drawing, and it looks like a drawing like an actual published page. So it depends to with each artist. It depends on each artist, and so I mean, there's no major critiques there. Just other than I'm just trying to point out that I used it, and then I could have gone somewhere else with that. But yeah, that's it's not that bad. So just to summarize, the three things that I consider that are wrong with this drawing are the proportions, just the rendering in general, and then the rendering that's done over the black areas. And so if I improve on these things, then this drawing would be a whole lot better. And one more thing is just this hand is horrible. The hand could work, but not with the angle of this forearm. Like the forearm is going in this direction, and the hand is going in that direction towards the viewer. So it's like, let me see if I can work with this. Is like this is the hand, and like this is the forearm, and then this is the hand, and instead of going in the same direction, the hand is like almost like broken off, going in that direction. So yeah, there's the hand should be positioned in a different way, or the arm should be positioned in a different way. But yeah, that's that whole segment here is just whack. It's horrible. And yeah, here for example, this is a good way of showing depth. I make the hand about as big as the head. So that's pretty good. I could probably use a thicker line weight across this, so I can help pull off that effect a lot more. And yeah, and that's it. So that's pretty much all that I have to critique on this piece. Once again, this is my Ant-Man piece from 2019. And yeah, so I hope you like it. Those are the problems that I noticed with it: proportions, rendering, and rendering in black. And yeah, so if you like the video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have a stack of artwork that I consider crappy that I'm going to look at. So this is just another one in that series. I have a back catalog of other drawings. I have drawings of Hawkeye, of Captain Marvel, of the Hulk, that just look horrible. And you can go back and take a look at them and see what critiques I have for myself. And yeah, check out my other drawings. More so posted recently a drawing of me working on page 7 of my comic. I'm currently working on an indie comic, just a small preview comic of 10 pages, and I'm going to give an announcement and an update next week. So next week on Wednesday. So please be sure to tune into that so you can stay up to date on news in reference to my comic. And that's it. So I hope you liked the video. Once again, like, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. And before you go, don't forget that I'm working on my own comic. It's called Ominous, and it starts with a 10-page preview with story and artwork by yours truly, featuring this sweet cover colored by the awesome Matt Yackey. So be sure to follow me on Twitter and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on everything.